Rodeo is known for its thrills and excitement, but it also comes with dangers. Behind the cheers and adrenaline, there are stories of tragedy. In this video, we'll look at 5 of the most disturbing rodeo accidents of all time. Real stories that show the risks faced by those who ride. These aren't just statistics. These are real stories of real people who paid the ultimate price for their passion. July 30th, 1989. Cheyenne Frontier Days. The name Lane Frost was already legendary in rodeo circles, but this day would ensure he'd never be forgotten, for all the wrong reasons. Lane wasn't just any cowboy. Born in Oklahoma in 1963, he'd become the face of professional bull riding. In 1987, at just 24 years old, he'd claimed the world championship. But Lane was special for reasons beyond his riding ability. While other cowboys might brush past fans, Lane would spend hours signing autographs, especially for kids. He understood that he wasn't just an athlete, he was a symbol of something larger. The bull that day was named Taking Care of Business. The irony of that name would haunt the rodeo community for years to come. Lane's ride was textbook perfect. Smooth, controlled, scoring an impressive 85 points. But it was what happened after the 8-second buzzer that changed everything. As Lane dismounted, the unthinkable occurred. The bull's massive hoof caught his chaps, and in one swift, brutal motion, the animal's horn found its mark. The 1,800-pound beast's horn pierced Lane's ribs with surgical precision, driving directly into his heart. The crowd fell silent as Lane stumbled forward, managed a few steps, then collapsed face down in the arena dirt. Dr. Skip Ross, the first responder, worked frantically for 90 minutes, but the damage was catastrophic. The broken ribs had punctured his heart. Lane Frost, the golden boy of rodeo, was gone at 25 years old. The impact was immediate and lasting. Lane's traveling partner, Cody Lambert, was so devastated by his friend's death that he dedicated his life to preventing similar tragedies. Lambert developed the protective vest that's now mandatory in professional bull riding, a piece of equipment that has saved countless lives since. But Lane's legacy extends far beyond safety equipment. His story inspired the 1994 film starring Luke Perry, introducing his tale to millions who'd never seen a rodeo. His mother, Elsie, created the Cowboy Bible Ministry, distributing free Bibles to children across the country in Lane's memory. Today, every time a bull rider straps on a protective vest, they're wearing Lane Frost's legacy. His death marked the end of rodeo's age of innocence and the beginning of its modern safety era. If Lane Frost's death shook the rodeo world, what happened to Tough Hedeman 6 years later nearly destroyed it. Las Vegas, 1995. The MGM Grand, the Professional Bull Riders World Finals. Tough Hedeman, yes, that was his real name, was rodeo royalty. 3-time world champion, tough as nails, and at 32, still at the top of his game. But across the arena stood something that would test even his legendary toughness: bodacious. The name alone sent chills through the sport. This wasn't just any bull. This was a 1,900-pound wrecking machine that had earned the nickname the world's most dangerous bull. Bodacious didn't just buck riders off. He systematically destroyed them. His signature move was a violent headbutt that could shatter bones like glass. The matchup was electric. The best rider in the world versus the most feared bull in rodeo history. When Hedeman nodded his head and the chute gate swung open, 15,000 people held their breath. What happened next lasted maybe 3 seconds, but the impact would echo for years. Bodacious exploded from the chute, and before Hedeman could even settle into his rhythm, the bull's massive head came up like a sledgehammer, connecting with Hedeman's face with the force of a car crash. The sound, a sickening crack that could be heard over the crowd's gasp, signaled that something terrible had happened. Hedeman crumpled to the arena floor, his face a mask of blood. Many in the crowd thought they'd just witnessed a death. Incredibly, Hedeman walked out of the arena under his own power. But the damage was catastrophic. Every bone in his face was broken, both cheekbones shattered, his nose pulverized. The injuries were so severe that when he arrived at the hospital, doctors initially thought he'd been shot. 13 hours of surgery, 6 titanium plates, a face rebuilt from scratch. Hedeman lost 25 pounds during recovery, and was so disfigured that his own young son could only recognize him by his voice. But here's where the story becomes legendary. 6 weeks later, 6 weeks, Hedeman returned to Las Vegas for the National Finals Rodeo. Against all medical advice, he competed, riding 5 of 10 bulls despite barely being able to see through his reconstructed face. And then, in the 5th round, something extraordinary happened. The draw was announced. Tough Hedeman had drawn Bodacious again. The arena fell silent. This was the moment that would define not just Hedeman's career, but his entire life. When the chute opened and Bodacious charged into the arena without a rider, the crowd erupted. Hedeman had made the smartest decision of his career. He chose to live. Bodacious was retired immediately after, having proved too dangerous even for professional rodeo. The bull died peacefully on a Texas ranch in 2000, but his legend lives on as a reminder that sometimes the beast wins. March 24, 2000, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Glenn Keely was living his dream. The 30-year-old Canadian was ranked 9th in the world, making serious money doing what he loved. That night, he was set to ride a bull named Promised Land, a name that would prove tragically ironic. Keely wasn't some weekend warrior. He was a professional athlete in peak condition, ranked among the world's elite. He'd been riding bulls for over a decade, and by all accounts, this should have been just another night at the office. Promised Land was the 1999 PBR Bull of the Year, a massive animal weighing nearly 2,000 pounds. But weight alone doesn't make a bull dangerous. It's the unpredictability, the split-second decisions that can turn a routine ride into a nightmare. The ride started normally. Keely mounted the bull, the gate opened, and Promised Land did what bulls do. He bucked, twisted, and fought to throw off his rider. For a few seconds, it was textbook rodeo. Then everything went wrong. Keely was thrown, not unusual in bull riding, but as he hit the ground, Promised Land's massive hind legs came down like pile drivers, crushing his chest with devastating force. The impact was so severe that several ribs cracked, one of them puncturing his liver. But Keely was tough. He walked out of the arena, even joking with the medical staff. To everyone watching, including his fellow riders, it looked like he dodged a bullet. How wrong they were. At the University of New Mexico Hospital, the full extent of the damage became clear. The internal bleeding was massive. Despite emergency surgery, Glenn Keely died before 10 p.m. that same night, becoming the first high-profile fatality in North American bull riding in 6 years. The rodeo community was devastated. Greg Whitlow, a fellow rider, captured the shock. It's a sad day for all of us. He was on top and enjoying every minute. The competition continued the next day, but it was different. Cowboys wore memorial stickers, and the joy had been sucked out of the arena. What made Keely's death particularly tragic was the family history. His brother Jason had been seriously injured by a bull years earlier, spending 2 weeks in a coma. The Keely family knew the risks better than most, yet Glenn's passion for the sport never wavered. At his funeral, over 1,500 people attended, including cowboys from around the world. Today, the Glenn Keely Award is presented annually at the PBR World Finals to honor Canadian cowboys, ensuring his memory lives on in the sport that both made and ultimately claimed him. July 24, 2007, Salt Lake City, Utah. 19-year-old Tag Elliott was living every young cowboy's dream. Fresh off winning the Utah High School Rodeo Finals and placing second nationally in college rodeo, he was ranked 24th in the world as a professional. The future was bright, and this ride at the Days of 47 Rodeo was supposed to be another step toward the top. The bull was named Werewolf, 1,500 pounds of pure aggression. For a teenager trying to make his mark in professional rodeo, drawing Werewolf was both an opportunity and a warning. But Elliott was fearless, the way only a 19-year-old can be. The gate opened, and for exactly 2 seconds, everything went according to plan. Then Werewolf's horn found its target with surgical precision, smashing into the right side of Elliott's face like a baseball bat swung by a giant. The impact was so severe that Elliott was knocked unconscious instantly. Every bone on the right side of his face was shattered. His jaw was broken in multiple places. His eye socket was crushed, and most of his teeth were gone. He collapsed in the dirt, motionless, as the arena fell silent. At LDS Hospital, doctors worked for 10 hours just to stabilize him. During surgery, Elliot's heart stopped twice and he had to be revived. When he finally woke up days later, he couldn't remember the accident or anything that had happened since. The next 20 months became a blur of surgeries, more than 20 procedures to rebuild his face. But here's where Tag Elliott's story becomes extraordinary. Despite the devastating injuries, despite the months of agony, despite having his face rebuilt piece by piece, Elliott never once considered quitting bull riding. "This is my job. This is how I make a living," he said, with the matter-of-fact tone of someone discussing the weather. His only concern wasn't whether to return, it was when the doctors would clear him to ride again. In 2009, after nearly 2 years of recovery, Elliott cautiously returned to competition. By 2012, he had made it back to the National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas, the Super Bowl of bull riding. He finished among the top 30 riders in the world in both 2010 and 2011, earning close to $85,000. His best year came in 2010-2012, when he won events in Austin, Texas, and Pocatello, Idaho, earning over $35,000 and ranking 15th in the world. For someone who had essentially had his face rebuilt, this wasn't just a comeback, it was a resurrection. "You know the risks going in, but you love the sport, and you keep doing it," Elliott explained, summarizing the mindset that separates professional bull riders from the rest of us. Even after everything he'd endured, his desire to ride never left him. Elliott's story is a testament to the human spirit's capacity to overcome impossible odds. While an arm injury eventually slowed him down, he remained involved in rodeo and continued working on his ranch in Idaho, living proof that sometimes the cowboy wins. September 6, 2023, in Lewiston, Idaho. After nearly 2 decades at the top of professional bull riding, J.B. Mauney was still competing at 36 years old. Known as the Dragon Slayer for his ability to conquer the sport's most feared bulls, Mauney was a living legend who had earned over $7 million in his career. But this night would mark the end of an era. Mauney wasn't just any bull rider, he was the bull rider. 2-time world champion, first cowboy to surpass even $1 million in career earnings, and the measuring stick by which all others were judged. Born in North Carolina in 1987, he'd been the Rookie of the Year in 2006 and had qualified for the PBR World Finals every single year from 2006 to 2020. The bull that night was Arctic Assassin, a name that would prove prophetic. As Mauney climbed onto the bull, the crowd knew they were watching a master craftsman at work. At 36, he was well past the age when most riders hang up their chaps, but his skill and determination remained unmatched. The gate opened, and Arctic Assassin surged forward with incredible force. For a moment, it was vintage Mauney. Perfect form, absolute control, the kind of ride that had made him famous. Then, in a brutal instant, everything changed. Mauney was thrown hard, landing on his head and neck with devastating impact. The crowd fell silent, sensing immediately that this was different. This wasn't just another fall, this was career-ending. At St. Joseph Regional Medical Center, doctors discovered that Mauney had broken his neck. The injury required immediate surgery to remove a disc and insert a rod, plates, and screws to stabilize the area. In a social media post that broke hearts across the rodeo world, Mauney shared the news. "I had surgery on my neck, which involved a rod, plates, screws, and disc removal. It went well. Unfortunately, this surgery ended my career. I'm doing well and on the road to recovery." Just like that, one of the greatest careers in rodeo history was over. Country singer Parker McCollum called him the GOAT on social media, while PBR announcer Rafael Vela said, "J.B. Mauney retires, but his legacy will never be forgotten. You are a legend." What made Mauney's injury particularly poignant was his history. This wasn't his first rodeo with serious injuries. In early 2023, he'd been knocked unconscious in Houston. In 2021, he suffered facial injuries at the National Finals Rodeo. Over the years, he'd broken legs, dislocated shoulders, and lacerated kidneys. But like all great champions, he always came back. This time was different. At 36, with a broken neck and a family to think about, even the Dragon Slayer knew when it was time to hang up his spurs. Fellow rider Cody Nance captured the sentiment perfectly. "It's been great riding with you all these years, champ. You've inspired me and so many others. Enjoy your retirement and your beautiful family, brother. It's been an honor." These 5 accidents represent more than just tragedy. They represent the evolution of a sport. Lane Frost's death led to mandatory protective vests. Tough Hedemann's encounter with Bodacious showed that sometimes discretion truly is the better part of valor. Glenn Keely's passing reminded us that even routine rides can turn deadly. Tag Elliott's comeback proved that the human spirit can overcome almost anything. And J.B. Mauney's retirement marked the end of an era while cementing a legacy that will never be forgotten. Today's rodeo is safer because of these tragedies. Better medical care, improved protective equipment, and enhanced safety protocols have all emerged from the lessons learned in blood and pain. But the fundamental risk remains. When you climb onto a 2,000-pound animal that doesn't want you there,